Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast Network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
Okay, so it's been a few weeks since we've had Nick on an episode, and in that time, I've received an expensive French book for nothing. I've learnt that Nick has a MasterChef obsession, and I've found about the finer points of vegan poutine. So, what have you been up to?
Yeah, there's quite a lot going on, I suppose. I've just recently discovered, I think my biggest news is that Apple has really listened to me endlessly tweeting about the same thing for months and months on end. And I thought it would never happen, but just before this podcast discovered that I can finally, in iOS 11, delete photo booth. Now that is the most pro feature ever.
Cool. That's awesome.
So I'm beyond excited, and yeah, I just cannot wait to not have it anymore.
You've been waiting, 4 years at least for that or something?
Yep.
That's crazy. And okay, so before we get into it, I just want to get your thoughts on what do you think about this downtown Chicago Apple store with a MacBook-like roof? It's pretty crazy.
It is pretty crazy. I never thought I'd use this in the same sentence as Apple, but I think it's a little bit tacky.
Yeah, well, I mean, the builders were seen positioning the Apple logo, and then they took it away. So, I mean, I'm assuming that is going to happen. And they're sort of saying that, coincidentally, it looks like a MacBook, but it seems pretty planned to me. I mean, I'd love to see it in real life, and it'd be great for, drone photography and that. But, yeah, I've never seen an Apple product at that scale before. So I think it is a wonder, but yeah, it does have that slight tackiness to it, as much as, I hate saying that.
Yeah, because I saw it and I immediately thought, oh, that looks cool, as I thought it was a Photoshop joke. And then I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. But then I realized that was not a joke. And so its effect wore off very quickly, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, the one day that I do actually get to America, I'll definitely have to check it out. Okay, so we're going to kick it off with product perception, but this time we're going to get Nick's other half, the Minister of Finance herself, Michelle, to talk about her latest acquisition, the Pride watch band. Okay, Michelle, first time on the podcast, a little quick guest spot. So it's good to actually speak to you for the first time after knowing you just through internet form over the past year or so since we've done the podcast.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah, cool. All right, so tell us about this watch band and how you got it.
Well, it is my Pride Edition watch band. I got it for my birthday from Nick.
Very nice.
I saw it. I didn't actually know that they had one, and then Nick showed it to me on the website, and I was like, that's pretty cool. And then we went into the Apple store and saw it, and it was amazing. I was like, I need to have this in my life. They had it with the ceramic watch.
Okay.
Yeah, so I fussed over it, and I was like, I really like it, and then for my birthday we were deciding what I wanted to get, and then I got my watch band. Okay,
so it wasn't so much a surprise, but more of a Nick gauged your reaction sort of thing, and then...
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, cool. So between that and getting drone photography and writing happy birthday in the sand, he's going for boyfriend of the year, obviously.
Yeah, he's really winning at life.
Yes, yeah. Okay, so just a little side note for anyone that doesn't know, Apple actually recently attended Pride parades in San Francisco, New York City, and Toronto. Now, they handed out free shirts, which would be awesome to get one. So, I mean, it looks quite vivid on the site. How is it in real life, in the sense that I mean, obviously it's there to draw attention, and I'd imagine, say, someone like yourself would probably be more comfortable with wearing bright colours, whereas someone like Nick has said that he much prefers wearing black, etc. So, do you get any people giving looks your way when you're wearing it, or?
I think I have had a few I've seen out the corner of my eye when we're in the lift and I was looking at my watch because I was admiring the band, and then Nick was just looking at his watch, and then I saw people out the corner of my eye looking at both of us with our watches, and I was like, yes, it's beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah, that's awesome. I certainly think what Apple are doing, particularly obviously Tim Cook and his involvement with the cause behind all of this is really cool, and the fact that they actually finally made the band available to purchase for everyone is awesome. So so that's pretty much it. You're loving it. And another side note, I still get the odd look from people with my AirPods. I had a kid on his bike nearly right off the road because he was staring at me. So that was a little scary for him. I was like, pay attention. So any last things to say on it, or do you often buy different bands, or is this kind of like a first time thing?
So I'd wanted a nylon band for a while, and none of the colors really appealed to me, but this one did because it was so bright. It's really, really vibrant in color. So I was like, yes, I need that. It's also really cool that the donation, so when you buy the donations are being made to the LGBT community, which was really amazing to hear. So
yes,
I'm really happy to be supporting that, and I like it a lot. I'm really proud. I'm a proud ally.
Yeah, no, very nice. It's very cool to hear. All right, so cheers for dropping in real quick, and we'll continue the conversation with Nick.
No worries. Do enjoy. Bye.
Cheers. Thank you. Alrighty, Nick, you're back. So I'd love to talk about your in-store experience with the new 10.5-inch and 12.9-inch iPad Pros. So I have mentioned this a little bit in the last episode, but please do tell.
Yeah, so I managed to get out to the store. I've been, I think, twice to check out the new iPad. So basically, I really wanted to see the new refresh rate. I think is, for me, the stand out, the promotion display, and I also wanted to see the smaller bezels. So I would say that when I first picked up the new 10.5, I actually wasn't convinced that it was a 10.5 and not the 9.7. The only way I could tell was for sure was by going into Apple's pricing app that they have on the demo iPads and actually checking what it was giving me the price for there. Because some of the other things, I didn't have my 9.7 to compare directly, so I couldn't say, okay, well, the camera is bigger, so it's the iPhone 7 camera. I couldn't say, okay, it's overall larger, so it's the 10.5, and so it was not immediately obvious, and the 12.9 is basically indiscernible, just from, without actually playing with it for a little while. I think I've also heard the sentiment echoed that the refresh rate is really noticeable when you have your old 9.7 there. Like it's really good, but you can really tell the difference when you can compare directly.
Oh, definitely. It's like I remember getting my 4S for the first time and then grabbing my 3GS and just looking at the absolute massive difference between display quality, and I could imagine it's not until you actually can do a side-by-side comparison that you can really tell.
Yeah, or use it for a while and then have to revert back to it. Like, if you have to go back to imagine a 3GS now. But the one thing that is very noticeable is the Apple Pencil lag, or the lack thereof. It's much better. And once you get used to just playing around with it, you see the better refresh rate in the system animations and stuff like that. So look.
Yes.
So that's just immediately, it's not that easy to tell, but actually it's a fantastic iPad and blazing fast. So, I think that's one of the things in my piece that I didn't really elaborate too much on, but, have a read of the piece and it's a very fast iPad. The benchmarks are insane and you can feel it when you use it. And the scary thing is the 9.7 is not slow. So for me to go from using that as my, my favorite word, the daily driver, to that, it's kind of like, to notice the speed improvement, it has to be extremely fast, and it is.
Wow. That's amazing. Cause exactly. You're going from literally just the generation before. It's not like you've held out, for a few years, and for you to notice that without even having to do a side-by-side comparison, certainly sounds really cool. And there's definitely, just a resounding love of the new iPad Pros. Certainly makes it very tempting. But
I think for me, the biggest question is not whether I will get one. It's pretty much which size will I get, because obviously Michelle having the 12.9, I'm constantly faced with this really usable multitasking iPad and not needing a Mac. And then on my side, just being able to have something ultra portable and more usable in more situations. So it's kind of toss up on size, also with the Apple Pencil, note taking, multitasking, that sort of stuff. And then, also just a case of when, because, again, going back to my piece, for 99% of people, I'll really encourage them to wait till iOS 11 if they're really planning on hoping to like the iPad again. Especially if you had one and then weaned yourself off of it, and now you're thinking of getting one again, please wait until iOS 11, because if you get it with iOS 10, you'll be able to do one or two more things, and then, if you haven't really found a use case, you probably won't, and then you won't get the full benefit from iOS 11. So I'm running the beta at the moment on my 9.7, and I'll probably continue doing that until the full thing is shipped, and then just get the new one.
Okay, so quickly on that, are you finding it as buggy as reported?
Well,
the first beta?
I think the important thing to keep in mind is that it is the first beta, but overall, it's actually fine. There are one or two bugs, so I've had... My most annoying bug actually is all day I've had the little music widget in the lock screen all day, which even though I haven't had music playing, so that was from I think this morning, and it just persisted, so that was annoying. But other than that, it's been pretty bug free. One of my most annoying iOS 10 bugs was using the smart keyboard on a quick reply. It wouldn't actually register that the keyboard was typing, and that's been fixed in iOS 11. So I think, some of my lagging iOS 10 bugs have been fixed, and I've got a couple on iOS 11, but nothing stand out.
Awesome to hear. And so I guess finally on this, are you more come to a decision that you're going to wait then? Are you taking your own advice?
I would say it's 50-50. Because I know it's the right thing to do, but I just really want the latest iPad. So I'm hoping I can wait. There's really no need to get the new one. I actually would say getting another Apple Pencil replacement is probably would get more enjoyment out of the usage than getting a whole new iPad for me at the moment.
Would you, considering you had the ferry incident where you lost yours, are you going to want to buy brand new again, or are you going to try and go the refurbished Apple Pencil route that they just announced?
So I had a look, and I couldn't see the refurbished in Australia. It's probably a matter of time before it comes here, but I would totally go refurbished if they have them by the time I am looking. The discount is not that much, but essentially you're getting the full warranty, you're getting the 2 tips, and otherwise it's just been previously used, but I don't think you're losing anything by going that route.
Can you imagine if you bought the refurbished Apple Pencil and you're like, oh, this looks very familiar. It has a fingerprint on it, but it kind of smells like the Sydney Harbour. Maybe this is the one. And by some bizarre case, someone found it floating and returned it and got refurbished. But anyway, that's almost impossible.
On the Apple Pencil note, one of the most exciting things for me is the sleeve cover with the Apple Pencil little, I'm going to call it a dock, where you can just put it in at the top. I will not get the new iPad without getting that sleeve. It is, I'm obsessed with those sleeves.
Yeah, that's I saw that and I was like, yeah, Nick's going to be talking about that. So they certainly do look cool. But quickly before we move on, which color are you leaning towards?
That is a tough question because I always want to go midnight blue and then end up going black. So it will be between those two.
I think, yeah, if I was in your shoes, I'd go with midnight blue.
But I have a black cover and I have the black bands for my Apple Watch and the space gray Apple Watch. And so it's kind of like black everything else and then midnight blue.
Well, I guess, once you go black.
Oh, Jesus.
Sorry about that. Anyway, we're going to switch it up completely to GarageBand has had a update for Mac and iOS, but I'm going to talk about the Mac one. This is version 10.2, and it's had a visual overhaul. Nothing was wrong with the previous version, but I do like it when they change it up a bit. Just going to list off how this looks different. It has a flatter, thinner, almost cartoon-like appearance. The buttons actually have these small sort of 1 pixel shadows on them, so that's kind of like the flatness scale they're going for. There's a new thin font for the LCD, with the playhead position and the tempo, and it kind of looks like a variation of San Francisco, so I'm going to have to do my font research there. The volume sliders are larger, which is always a welcome change. The open menu has a dark translucent background that ties in quite nice with the rest of Sierra. When you add a track, all those icons are now flat icons, rather than, a 3D render of a drum kit, etc. The digital instruments controls, they retain the same design, and they've actually, surprisingly, they've retained the two little wooden sides to the GarageBand windows. So I thought they'd remove that because to me that's straight up skeuomorphic, but it's still recognizably GarageBand. But the most exciting part about all of this is Touch Bar. So as you know, I've got MacBook Pro. Any ways that people are enhancing and adding to Touch Bar, I very much appreciate that. And so previously, this was mostly just level controls, and that was it. Whereas now, it's split up into 4 sections. So you can choose from levels, timeline, controls, and recording input / digital instrument. So the levels is pretty much the same as before. There may be some additions there. The timeline is super useful. Obviously, I edit the podcasts in GarageBand, so to be able to scrub back and forth from the timeline straight on Touch Bar, I've wanted that for ages. Now the controls themselves, so this is like your play, record and that type of thing. They're white glyphs with a semi-transparent green, red or orange background. So this looks okay, except for the faded orange against the background being black on the Touch Bar looks kind of muddy. So it's this sort of like dirty orangey color. So I wish that they would either go full color with those buttons or just maybe go gray or something. Now, the fourth option is if you're on a track that you're going to record, it's the recording input. But if you're not and you're actually using a digital instrument, this is the best part, is you can actually play the instruments from Touch Bar, which is amazing. So guitar, synths, and piano, they all show as piano and keyboard keys. It's also got arrows on the side that you can go up and down, so lower to higher. It's got a scale button. You can choose from 17 types of scales, and you can actually change the key from there as well. And you can toggle the arpeggiator, which will be great when recording, because I imagine some people playing synths and stuff, and they want to enable arpeggiator and disable it during a run without having to, do 2 separate takes. So that's really cool. The only problem I see with this is this would be hard to play either complex stuff or live, seeing as it's such a small area. But I think certainly for recording or just trying out sounds, very handy. And finally, with the digital instruments, one of the biggest parts that I'm interested in is digital drum creation. So previously, I would always use musical typing when composing digital drums. The disadvantage to this is that you can never actually see what drum was what. You just have to hit the keys and know what sounds like which drum. So they use actual icons for the drum pieces. So they're separated by color. So you've got hi-hat is blue, the kick is purple, the snares are orange, etc. Now you can, all of these drums are separated into 3 views. So you can kind of tap at the side to select different drums. And the advantage to this not being slidable is it means that if you're trying to record and play it, you're not going to be accidentally hitting the wrong drum by it sliding around everywhere. So it's good that they actually thought of that. And it has a velocity slider. So I was manually tweaking drum compositions with the velocity to kind of make it sound more realistic, because an actual drummer is not going to be playing at the same intensity every time perfectly. So I would change velocities to get a snare roll, etc. And this, you can actually do that on the fly while you're playing, while you're recording. And so that's really awesome. The only problem with this with the drums is I wish there was a left-handed mode. So I've kind of got, naturally how I'd play it is my hands are crossed over and I can't actually see what I'm doing. So if they enabled left-handed mode, that'd be cool. And finally, on this update, there is some cross-platform actions. So you can actually add tracks in the iOS version of GarageBand, and it will sync automatically and appear in the desktop GarageBand file. So yeah, whole bunch of updates there. If you're definitely into GarageBand and want to try out something new with your touch bar, I'd definitely go install that update right now.
They sound pretty cool. I haven't used GarageBand in a while. I don't think I have a musical bone in my body, but one thing I've always been attracted by in GarageBand, like this is my goal for using it, is a jam session using an iOS device with a few of my friends all playing, like doing one of those jam sessions where it connects all your GarageBand via Bluetooth and one person can play each sort of instrument. Have you ever done that?
No, but that would be awesome. I used to use GarageBand on iPad. I've used it live, which was really cool. So, back in the day, I was in a band and we were playing, I was doing vocals, and then, my friend goes to do the bass solo, and we need some, lower parts to fill out the mix live, and I had the iPad hooked up and I was, playing some like deep synths with the arpeggiator on live, and that was cool. The actual merging of the digital and real instruments at the same time. So I certainly think a complete digital, complete GarageBand setup would be awesome to try out. Okay, so that wraps up product perception, and we're going to move on to the really the focus of this episode, and that is everything Apple's doing with augmented reality. So Tim Cook describes what they're doing with AR like he feels so passionate about it that he wants to yell out and scream. Those are his words exactly. Now, I feel like AR is great to use in short lengths with iPad, kind of medium lengths with iPhone. This is given the weight of the devices. I really feel like what they're showing off with AR kits is certainly leading up to and strongly hinting at Apple glasses. Do you think there's legitimacy in this claim?
I think there was... they bought a company yesterday, in fact, so I think there is a possibility, but I know that one of Tim Cook's biggest issues against glasses was that he wears glasses because he has to, and that's just kind of a necessity item, whereas compared to the watch on the wearable side is that, you know, people, like almost everyone wears or used to wear a watch, and it had nothing to do with whether you needed one or not physically. So, I mean, I get that statement. So it'll be interesting to see if they do revert back on that. Do people at Apple change their mind? Sure, they do all the time, but it would have to be because they were shown why it works. So if there's a reason why it works, I want to see it. I won't go back into my fear of the AR, VR future, but it could happen. I personally don't think it will happen in a way that Google Glass did.
I think it's more, Apple has certainly expressed their views on not wanting to do VR headsets and wanting not to take people out of reality. Yeah. So I think that the only way that they're going to achieve this, all what they're doing with AR Kit is awesome. And, you know, using it with iPads and iPhones is great. I just feel like that it's leading up to something that will, be hands-free. And the most obvious option to me is some Apple glasses, but I feel like whatever option they do come out, whatever product they do come out with, will be more in the way of Apple Watch, where it's actually stylish and actually looks real. It's not going to look like you've got this tech thing strapped to your head.
Yeah.
I think that, they're going to kind of pull it off in a smart, sort of fashionable way. But we're going to just talk about some AR-related apps that are either just come out or in the works. So, Nick, Nike Plus released a exclusive sneakers app. What's this about?
So, the sneakers app has been around for a while, but they've just added some AR features to it. So, I think essentially I would say my highlight for it is that it pretty much unlocks a secret menu for buying the shoes. So, I think their high profile integration is with their new SB Dunk High Pro Momofuku shoe, which I think is a collaboration with David Chang, the New York chef. And then the SB is, I think, skateboarding for Nike. I am a Nike fan, so I say I think, but I'm pretty sure about that. So basically what happens is, as I said, it's a collaboration with David Chang. You go into the app, and you find a post about these shoes, and you can use the gift to open the camera. And if you find the menu for Fuku East Village, which is David Chang's restaurant, you can actually so a shoe can appear on that menu, where you can tap to load and buy. So basically, it's kind of what I like about the whole concept is that it unlocks things that you don't see normally. And so, if you can have the same poster for two people, in this case menu, but if you go through the app and actually just point it at the same thing, you can actually visually see something different and have a different experience, which I think is cool. And although I'm not a huge fan of it in this very context, like having to do that to buy a shoe, I would say it's pretty cool in if you had to think about actual menus, like if you went to Starbucks or McDonald's, for example, and you were able to access certain menu items there, that would be pretty cool. So I'm excited about the future of it. Maybe not this thing specifically, especially because it's not available in Australia. So
I'd love it if Apple rolled out something like this at particular Apple stores, like an exclusive watch band or something, and you had to physically go to the Sydney store or whatever. That would be great if they tied it in with the launch of a new Melbourne store that they're supposedly working on.
Yeah, so I'm going to, I'm happy to brainstorm on this one. So what about those activity pins that we saw given away at WWDC?
WWDC, yeah.
Some of the t-shirts. Wow. What if it was in that Designed by Apple in California book, where you could sort of see extra things there? See, now that would be really exciting.
Yeah.
That I think speaks a bit more to us.
Yeah, the possibilities of all this are just amazing, and a lot of this stuff has existed. It's more the fact that ARKit has just made it look a lot better, and they've kind of reinvigorated this excitement with developers to embrace ARKit, and so I'm actually really looking forward to the type of stuff that comes out. But this whole shoe thing actually reminds me of a couple of years ago. There was this app called String AR, and I tried it out on iPad, a couple of years ago, and you would print off a bunch of posters off their site, and then you place it on the table surface, and then something comes to life. So one of them, it was just like this Nike example, like a shoe appeared. So the actual poster became like the flat plane. So if you had it up on your screen, the shoe looks like it's stuck to your screen, and you could actually rotate the shoe, tap it to change color and all that sort of stuff. And they had other stuff like, they had this printout of this dragon, and you pointed at it, and the entire poster looked like it created a hole in the surface that it's on, and this dragon flew out and around. So I have seen this sort of stuff before. I kind of freaked everyone out at work about it because they'd never seen it before. But certainly the examples that developers putting up using ARKit look a lot better. But it is quite a bizarre crossover, this sort of like restaurants and shoes, but I do like the fact that as per, Planet of the Apps episode 3, that there's people that are crazy about sneakers, Nike shoes, and if you have like a rare exclusive release, and that's the way they have to get it, people are going to do it. So, I certainly do agree with you. I think if there was stuff that was more Apple specific, I could definitely see you traveling to Melbourne if Melbourne was only going to be the place that an exclusive release appeared. So
I think one of the most underrated things coming out of WWDC was ARKit, and so we're kind of seeing some of these iterations of developers trying out new things with ARKit. So did you want to tell us a bit more about kind of things we've seen there, and just the wide variety of stuff that's coming out of developers?
Yeah, definitely. So if you're on Twitter, or even if you're not, just go check out, go to Twitter and search Made with ARKit. And it's a dedicated profile where they're kind of collating all these example video clips of what developers have been doing with ARKit. So last episode I mentioned the thing about an alien, and that's on there. Now, some of these examples really kind of showcase the advancements in the detail of 3D models, while others, the models don't look as good, but really showcases like the depth sensing and spatial awareness. So there's been some new examples I just saw recently. One is of this guy has set up, it's detecting the pool as the flat plane, and it looks like it's got a landing surface floating in the pool, and then he points his camera up, and it's the Falcon 9 rocket is landing itself out of the sky onto this platform on the pool, and it's the way it's aligned to the water and everything is just excellent, and it looks pretty good. Another awesome one I saw was a life-size plane. So this is another big advantage of ARKit, is the accuracy of measurements. So that you can set you can create a human-sized model, and it's going to appear at that realistic size. Now, a lot of these demos are kind of, showing that these are actually down to the millimeter accurate, which is insane to me. Another really cool one was this one. It showed the example of like the extreme tracking. So this guy places this little static rocket in the air, and he goes, in a room, and he walks all the way through his house, and you can see the rocket through the walls, but it's fixed position. He walks all the way around the house and comes back, and it's almost retained in that exact position he placed it. Like the fact that it didn't glitch and disappear or completely shift a meter to the side. I was blown away by that. But I think one of the best looking examples I've seen was, of course, if you're into Star Wars, BB-8 from Force Awakens, and someone has a little BB-8 being controlled rolling around on some tiles, and that looks really cool. So just to go a little bit further on the accuracy side of it, there's actually these two apps that have come out. One called, it's AR Ruler, but it's like A Ruler, and AR Measure. So with A Ruler, you can actually, if someone has in their example, they have a measuring tape laid out, and then they're drawing a measuring tape using the app side by side, and it's like within millimeters accurate to it, which is just amazing. And another one which would be super handy, especially for people that, so many times I get people with, say a photo frame, and they go, oh yeah, I want something that size, and how big is that? And rather than getting out and actually measuring it up yourself, with this app, you can actually measure the diagonal length of the photo size within the app, and it's accurate. Like, that's just going to be so handy. So those two really handy use cases, I think, are amazing.
Yeah, certainly all sounds really cool. I think, as I say, it's been getting a lot better press than most Apple things do. If Siri gets an update, it's immediately said, Google Home or Google Assistant is so much better. And I can tell you, having a Google Home, it really, really is not. And so, I know Google had their whole Daydream and Project Tango, I think, with their AR and VR things. And so it was always mentioned that Apple was way behind. And it's just really, really good to see them come out way ahead on the sort of next gen technology, which is kind of where the whole of Silicon Valley thinks the focus should be. So that's been really exciting. And one of the other things which is pretty cool, just based on the within millimeter accuracy. So I have a ton of IKEA furniture. I don't know if you do. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
and so one of their partners is going to be IKEA, which again, we just said we both have a bit of IKEA stuff. So we've seen a bit of some similar stuff in Planet of the Apps, where you can put like furniture within the house, right? And then sort of see how it looks. But this is pretty much along that idea, but it has some advantages. So it gives you photorealistic renders in your room. So I think we saw in the keynote shadows and that sort of thing exists. So that's pretty cool. A millimeter precise sizing, and then 500 to 600 products at launch, which is really cool. And we'll launch with iOS 11. And this got me to thinking, and also within millimeter accuracy, sometimes when we've been looking for a new place to live in, we'll wonder whether our fridge will fit in the sort of hole that exists, right?
Yeah,
especially in
the recess.
We found in Sydney, where we have some older places available on the market, and it's a bit difficult to pick up. It would be really cool to just point your phone at it or your iPad at it and immediately know that it will or won't fit.
Yes.
And and going off the IKEA thing, you can pretty much, before you go by, see how it's going to look in your house and go get it, which is amazing.
I can't tell you how many Allen keys I have from IKEA flat packs.
Why do we keep them all? Every time they give you the ones you need every time.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
I know someone's, it has been handy in the past. Someone's like, hey, got an Allen key? I'm like, I've got 50.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think the coolest part about this is IKEA, don't actually have to do too much in the sense of creating these renders, because they actually currently use photorealistic 3D renders over actual product photography now. So it's kind of like the models already exist. It's just a case of like working with ARKit to get it the best it can be. And I think the coolest part about this is so many times we talk about new apps and everything, and we're like, okay, well, it's going to start in America and it'll trickle down to Australia. Well, Australia has plenty of IKEA stores. I mean, WA, the forgotten state, has IKEA stores too, and we have a massive IKEA store. So I'm hoping that this is usable straight away for Australia.
Yeah, and I don't see any good reason why it wouldn't be, because none of the stuff is actually, AR is not really region specific. You don't need to cater for Australian table, or you know what I mean, like you would accents or something in the machine learning space. So I'm really impressed, and although I'm generally a Debbie Downer about this kind of technology, this has been getting me really excited, just because they've done it so well.
It's actually funny that you said Debbie Downer, because I just thought that was an Australian colloquialism.
Oh no, it's definitely not.
Oh, cool. This is a little side note. I got a little distracted asking Nick about everything accent related between South Africa and Australia the other day.
Yeah, I think your favourite that you forget every time is that South Africans, or I don't even know if it's all South Africans, but I say mom instead of mum, and
MOM instead of UM.
And generally
we're like mum.
Yeah, well, generally I think South Africa and Australia follow under British English. So my whole life I've thought that mum was the British version and mum was the American version, and turns out that it's not always the case. So yeah, that was a surprise to me.
Yeah, because we've actually, funnily enough, because, I've got family over in the UK, that's where I was born, and they all have MUM, but then I've got a friend was born from Jersey, so just below UK, and they say MOM, so I don't know, the rules are out the window with that one. But yeah, we're just going to finish up the AR talk with Apple filed a AR specific patent. This came the day after the IKEA app news, and the patent is for AR apps for interior design. So there's the IKEA reference, and this one I'm really excited about, animated movie posters. So the actual patent references a virtual sofa, which is pretty much the IKEA app idea. And yeah, I just love the fact that if without having to add anything specific to the poster, like any little graphic or QR code or whatever, that there could be an app that could just, the movie poster will trigger a trailer or trigger some sort of cool animation. You know, the fact that you could just walk into the cinema and just have all this stuff happen, or even just look up the movie poster, Google Images, and you could check it out straight from there. Yeah, without even having to have a custom image. So if something like that rolls out, that'd be really cool. They might be able to use that to revive the iTunes movie trailers.
Yeah, I really used to love that app so much.
Yeah, and then I completely forgot.
I don't think I've downloaded it in the last 4 or 5 new devices I've gotten. Yeah.
Yeah, it would be
something
good.
Tells me
so they could revive that one. And
it's on the forgotten list with music memos and, dare I say, clips.
Oh, yeah. I haven't touched clips since. I do use music memos. Actually, I still have some memos in there, but
maybe that was just
it would be good to.
Yeah.
Would be good to revive that and just kick photo booth under.
That's well deleted. Goners. I'm never going to see it again. I'm so happy about that.
Unless it's just a beta bug.
I don't care. I will never update my iPad if that's the case. It will stay on iOS 11 beta 1, public beta 1, done.
There you go. And the last bit of his patent is it actually references a head-mounted display. So this is hinting to me glasses, as it refers to optical see-through displays. So there you go. The future of AR is Apple is the big player in this space. As you said, you know, there are other stuff happening with Project Tango, etc. But it's certainly really exciting, and I'm just extra pumped for the September event, because I'm sure that's going to definitely play a big part in that. And okay, we're just going to move on to core focus. So the man himself, the Apple Maps debacle, Scott Forstall, has returned to the stage, the non-Broadway stage, because it's seemingly that's what he's been doing in his time since then. So there was a Facebook Live video with Computer History Museums. It's now on YouTube. You can check it out. We'll link to it, of course. The second half of this interview is with Scott for around an hour. This interview's received mixed reactions. I think a lot of people were hoping for a bit more of an expose, but it was quite a positive interview, and I enjoyed watching it. So what did you think of it?
I absolutely I loved it. I thought it was really interesting, not only with the earlier guys, but especially with Scott. So I think I'll just quickly say one of the things that I really enjoyed, and I've noticed this across a few different Apple execs, recently with Lisa Jackson, when she spoke about when she really learned what Apple means when they say think differently. And this was the same with Scott, is he was talking about how he was giving a demo to I think it was the cellular network guys in a hotel room, and he needed Wi-Fi, but he didn't want to connect to the hotel room Wi-Fi and have to authenticate and go through that whole process. He just wanted it to work. You just click on the Wi-Fi network and it will automatically work. But it was a paid for Wi-Fi network, so it had authentication. So he somehow got through to the network guys and said, you know, can you please turn off authentication for my room that we're doing the demo in? So guy says, okay, let me investigate. Phones back about, an hour later and says, look, if we have to turn off the Wi-Fi in your room, the authentication, we can't do that on a room by room basis. And the same Wi-Fi network authentication is used for the shopping area that's connected to the hotel. Right. So if we had to do that, we can't switch yours off, because if we had to do that, we'd have to turn off authentication for everyone. So now Scott Forstall had told them that he's like the CEO of Singular or the network or something like that, and had basically said, I'm renting out half your hotel room. You make a plan for me. So when this guy says we'd have to turn off authentication for everyone, he's like, well, it sounds like you found a plan. You've made a plan then. Yeah. And so then the guy sort of switches off authentication for everyone, and eventually, he did the demo and everything went well, and then afterwards he gets a call from this guy being like, please, can I turn authentication back on? Please, we've lost $10,000 having this authentication. Like, for me, that was just insane. You basically, that for me was really ballsy.
I kind of thought that maybe he'd just pay the bill. Do you know what I mean? Just be like, I'll just keep it going for as long as I need and I'll foot the bill sort of thing. But, it was just like, okay, well, there's your solution. Just get it done. He kind of, it seemed to me like he was kind of taking on that Steve Jobs style mentality, like, figure it out,
Yeah.
There's no ifs and buts. It's just
that's
do
exactly
it.
right. You get it done under, by any means necessary, and kind of even the crazy solutions are not that crazy there. So yeah, there were some other interesting things, but I'll be happy for you to get into it.
Yeah, well, we were talking about that reference to how he was kind of like Steve Jobs, and people would say it back when he was part of Apple, but it sort of didn't seem as apparent to me until now that Scott Forstall actually does kind of echo Steve's Job-isms, sort of in the way people say he's a good storyteller, and he certainly is, and even just the little gestures that he does and the way he kind of like looks at the interview and then looks away, and similar kind of like body build, I guess, and yeah, obviously, what happened with Apple Maps was at launch, because now it's good, but at launch was a disaster, and it certainly was. It didn't seem unfair that they had to let him go because of that, but it was really enjoyable to just hear all the history he's had, like how involved he wasn't just someone that just came in for iOS specifically. Like he talked about all his involvement and his friendship really with Steve Jobs, which he expands upon with this crazy story about how he got this virus passed on through his kid's school, and he was like this rare case where it pretty much shut down his stomach, and he was just like constantly being sick, and he was pretty much, this was going on, and he's pretty much on his deathbed, and Steve Jobs just like busts into this hospital, brings this like specialist acupuncturist who cures him in 2 days. Like, it's just, the way he says it is you're so drawn to what he's saying, and you can just picture like Steve Jobs busting in and being like, if they won't let me in, then dedicate a wing to this. And it was awesome. I was definitely drawn in to the interview, and it was also hilarious hearing about the way that iPad was created. So do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, it was another really funny moment with I think essentially, Scott said that Steve came back from a weekend on a Monday, and he would occasionally get together with his wife's friend, whose husband, his wife's friend and her husband, who worked at Microsoft. And every time Steve would get together with this guy, he would come back super pissed off, because this guy would basically go there and say, Microsoft's figured out the future of computing with tablets and styluses and the whole future of how that's going to work. They've figured it out. They're way ahead. And so Steve would get really pissed off, and that's sort of how the iPad or the tablet project came to be.
Yeah, that was a funny one, and that was the coolest bit about all of this, is all the little kind of like bits of comedy he puts in without sort of almost batting an eyelid, especially when he's talking about, he starts off talking about Broadway and that, and he kind of digresses into talking about spearfishing and taking these photos, but he kind of like really wanted the photo, but his brother looked like he was about to get chomped on by the shark, and that was that was certainly a good part of the interview. The only problem I found with it is, obviously there is a time limit, but the interviewer seemed very concerned with the time. Like, there was one point where Scott's just like, I have to tell this story, because he just kept wanting to skip on to the next part. But
yeah, that was kind of frustrating, especially because it only, these kind of things happen only once in a while. But I think he did the complete opposite with the first panel. So he had three guys on the first panel, and every single question, they would just cycle through all of their answers. And so that took, I would guess, 3 times longer than they expected. And then they didn't really get the best out of Scott. Maybe he was hard on time, but it seemed like that was not the case. Cause as you say, there was the time where he was going to continue on and kind of asked, and the guy was just like, no, let's just move on.
And what about the thing that everyone's pointing out, the fact that he's wearing the same shirt as WWDC?
I solidly picked up on that. And then I was like, obviously not the only one. I'm pretty sure it was trending on Twitter because he had basically not changed a bit, including his outfit, since the last WWDC.
I think the only thing he gained was like a few grey hairs at the front of his head, and that was it.
and actually, we'll speak a little bit about this later, but he was wearing a very, very similar shirt in one of the other videos that he was on. But the interviewer actually asked him about wearing the same shirt, because I think he got questions from the crowd, and he was like, "Is that the same shirt from WWDC?" And Scott, in a very Steve Jobsy way, said, when I find something I like, I buy 10 of them. So may well be, because Steve Jobs, I believe, had 100 black polo necks from Izzy Miyake. So
yes, I think I remember back when he was part of Apple Keynotes, and we were discussing this, and we've always said, Craig Federighi's our favourite, but I remember when Scott was, active with the keynotes, I very much looked forward to his time on stage. And at that time, I would actually also wear very similar shirts as well. So I've kind of like, there's a little bit of nostalgia there with that downward striped dark brown shirt. So
I think you spoke a little bit earlier about the, Apple Maps fiasco. And so Scott he's really good. He's really entertaining, and I enjoyed watching him being interviewed. And I also really enjoyed his, keynote presentations. One of the things that I think happens in the background is that, as you say, he's very like Steve Jobs, and Steve Jobs was quite like hard and pushed and quite competitive. And so I think he didn't have too many, friends, right? I think it was quite a power push at Apple at that time, and I think he may have been winning, because I know that Bob Mansfield, who I have a lot of respect for, and is involved in like the hardware side in Apple now in I think he's rumored to be leading the Apple Car project, because he actually left Apple for retirement and then came back once Scott Forstall was fired. So I think basically that kind of behavior, coupled with the iOS 5 maps or 6 maps for Apple Maps fiasco, led him to be ousted. Whereas I think if he didn't have that screw up, it would have been fine. And so, like, on the same sort of, in the same vein, Craig's had some screw ups, not on the scale of Apple Maps, right? But his software is not perfect. Walt wrote an article last year speaking about how Apple's software had gone down. And so, but he's obviously just way more liked within Apple. So it's kind of like you got to be good at both.
I can just imagine Craig being like everyone's mate. Do you know what I mean? Whereas Scott was probably, like, as you said, quite headstrong and that sort of stuff, and probably would be, like with Steve, where I think, a lot of people probably, honest to say, feared him. In the sense, they worked for him, but they didn't want to disappoint him. And Scott very well could have been, up in that sort of level. Yeah. We're just going to finish up with the Wall Street Journal had a quick 9.5-minute video called Behind the Glass. This featured 3 former Apple executives: Tony Fadell, who was in charge of iPod, Greg Christie, in charge of human interface, and of course Scott Forstall with iOS. Now, really, the whole thing is just geared around what these 3 were thinking around the time when the iPod was at like the peak of its success, and what are they going to do to either continue that, or what possible threats are there, or do they have to bring a new product in? So they were initially thinking of an iPod plus phone, and they came up with like 30 or 40 ways to avoid having the iPod click wheel as part of this new iPod phone, because to them it just felt straight like an old phone that circular that you dial around. And there were some other parts with this where they were talking about there was this like ping pong sized area with a projector pushing down an image of a Mac, and Steve was showing Scott this demo of like what a touchscreen would be like, but it was like ping pong size, which is table size, which is just crazy I'm just picturing this completely dark room and be like, oh, hey Scott, just come check this out for a bit, sort of thing. And the way that they tell these stories, it would certainly make for a good movie. And they were saying that basically Steve told them that they have 2 weeks to come up with a solution for the user interface for what became iPhone. And it sounds crazy. Like, they were working 168 hours per week, and they finally came up with this user interface. And the biggest part of that being a software keyboard, but it wasn't ready when they had it with this demo. So Forstall then made the call to cease all app development and work on the software keyboard for 3 weeks to get it right, and some of these included gesture-based demos, it's actually funny to think about, because remember when you had like these Android keyboards and everyone's like, oh, I can just like swipe around and all that sort of stuff, and the iPhone keyboard is so, it's not advanced, you can't even do that sort of stuff. It's like they've thought about all of that. Like they came to the ultimate solution. And the most interesting aspect of this was that the one that got chosen was actually looked almost exactly the same as the UI mock-up they came up with. But the key to it was that it intelligently changed the size of the hit region. So when you're typing, so the example they give is you type T and the area given to you hitting H is a lot, increases beyond the size of the button, even though the button looks the same. And then because the is a common word, and then therefore once you hit H, the hit region for E is quite big. It's like, almost a whole other key larger. And I mean, you just have to see the video to see the visual explanation of this, but, it was cool just like thinking about how they actually came up with a design for it, but they needed to fix it. And this one guy just came up with this, intelligent changing hit regions as the way to get the keyboard to work.
Yeah. And I think, I don't know if you noticed, but he mentioned that they used machine learning to do this. This was in 2005, 6, whenever, during the project that it was, they were actually doing this. So anyone who reckons Apple's way behind, they've been using machine learning in their keyboards since before the iPhone shipped. So, and as you say, the gesture-based stuff they tried out, and I had no doubt that they had from the beginning, but they thought about this stuff.
How funny was the part though when Fidel's explaining the nail biting intensity of the iPhone demo, and that they had to time it perfectly because they didn't want anything to fail.
I think the thing about Fidel is that I kind of lost. I couldn't help when watching him talk just think he's talking rubbish the whole time, just because of the whole issue with his quote in the One Device book, where he sort of throws Phil Schiller under the bus, and then it's actually a rubbish story, and he's like, oh, I told you, he said to the author, I told you a lot of things, I didn't mean for you to take them all literally. It was like, you're on the record in an interview, what were you doing?
Yeah, he actually recorded him saying
it. So I don't know what to take from that guy anymore. So basically for me, this video was 2 people that I was really interested in watching.
Yeah. It is good. It is like there's a bit of a nostalgia with this. You're finding out some new anecdotes, particularly from what Scott says, and I certainly hope to see more of Scott. Do you think it's far beyond him returning to Apple at any point?
I really don't think that will ever happen. I think he wouldn't want to, and I think they don't. I don't see him fitting back into that. If it was Steve Jobs' Apple, maybe, the great comeback because I think the other thing was he saw himself as the next Steve Jobs, and I'd sort of seen this before, that he was, it was kind of like between him, Johnny Ive and Tim Cook being made the next CEO. And I think when you don't get that doesn't come up too often. And if you don't get it at that point, when you're basically next in line, you sort of start thinking about other things and maybe move on. And that's kind of what we had expected Johnny Ive to do for so long. But I think he's been given so much free reign at Apple, it doesn't really matter whether he's CEO or not. They do anything to keep him. Oh, you want to design a store? Sure. Do you want to go off design a charity thing? Sure. So.
Make a Christmas tree. Make a awkwardly yellow exclusive iPad.
You want us to sell a $17,000 Apple Watch just so you can use gold in it? Absolutely, Johnny. Anything you want. So yeah. So essentially, I think Scott's time has passed, and I think that's a good thing. It's he did great work, and I can't fault him for the early development on the iPhone and the device actually existing the way it does now. But I think it is time it's good that Apple's moved on.
Well said. Okay, of course, we'll link to that video too. Don't want to, completely ruin it for you. But, that brings us to the end of Apple Slice episode 30. Yeah. And of course, if you'd like little bits of news in between, where can people follow us?
So you can find us on Instagram at Apple Slice Podcast, on Twitter at Apple Slice AU, and Facebook.com/Apple Slice Podcast.
And of course, if you haven't subscribed already, please search Apple Slice in your podcast player, and it would be great if you could visit our fresh website, appleslice.com.au. So before we sign off, got anything else to add?
That's all from me this time.
Cool, no worries. I'll be sure to follow any more of your MasterChef obsessions between now and the next episode, and see what you can cook up. So
it's basically taking away from my Apple time.
Oh, damn. So anyway, all right. So good been having a chat. Great to have Michelle drop in real quick, and we'll catch you in the next episode.
Cheers.
Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.